Watch this.
Idaho Legislative Session Day 78, or end date +3. Yeah, the session was supposed to end last week, but here we are still going, trying to slam a lot through, including 2 new library bills that want to ban harmful material. But what is harmful, the material or the bill?
I have more of my family that have broken their legs in Idaho than any other family that's running for president.
Well, there's a statement that won't go out of date. A look back at the time Senator Robert Kennedy campaigned in Idaho 55 years ago. You know, usually we catch up with your questions on Fridays, but last week we got a little caught up with the legislature. So today we're going to tackle a few of your questions, including one on property tax. And after today, the answer isn't so clear. So the work of about 3 months has come down to a possible 2 days, give or take. 2 long days, by the way, at least for the Senate, who's debating newly introduced bills and amending old ones on the fly, on the floor. A couple of the new bills being considered today, includes a new run at libraries. Just when library leaders were about to breathe a little easier with two of those bills being held in the House Education Committee and another stalled in the Senate, 2 others were freshly brought forth Friday and also at the discretion of the Senate today. At issue, once again, the fear that minors are having unfettered access to harmful materials at their local and school library. And once again, we hear from a library leader who knows all too well what it's like to be the center of unwanted and possibly unwarranted attention. Here's Joe Paris.
As lawmakers work to wind down the legislative session, 2 bills on the topic of content in libraries sit in waiting. Legislation aims to prevent minors from accessing harmful materials in school and community libraries. The topic is top of the marquee in Meridian, Idaho. For months, the community there has watched a battle over what's in the library and where it's placed. Senate Bills 1187 and 1188 would legislate that around the state with the collection of policies to protect minors from harmful materials.
We feel that to comply with the requirements of this policy, we would need to make some pretty significant operational changes.
Megan Larson is the trustee chair of the Meridian Library District Board. Policies laid out in the proposed legislation would vastly change how content is accessed and by who, she says.
There's many works of contemporary and classic literature, many nonfiction works that contain descriptions of sex. So to comply with the bill's requirements, we would need to rescind library cards that are issued to minors currently. We would need to prevent any minors from entering the library unless they were accompanied by a parent. We would need to discontinue our home delivery service. We would need to limit our outreach activities to only those locations where we don't expect minors to be, and possibly other changes to our policy.
Larson says library entities simply can't take on the financial risk of being subject to lawsuits and penalties. That reality sets another option for places like the Meridian Library.
The other option would be to just absolutely decimate the adult collection in the library and remove every work of literature, nonfiction work that contain descriptions of sex. Either way, we just think the impact on our community would be nothing short of devastating, and truly I'm just heartbroken.
The proposed legislation also sets up a citizen review committee to help the community deal with content questions. However, critics of the bill, they question the makeup of the committee, which includes one representative from the, quote, religious community.
A huge concern about a government entity such as a public library district selecting a member of the religious community and excluding many other religious communities. We don't see how that can be done without violating the Establishment Clause. We are a governmental entity, and for us to choose one religion over another it just does not seem like a thing that we can do acceptably.
Larson also draws attention to the proposal that says if a court finds any entity allowed minors to access harmful material, an Idaho court can order the seizure and destruction of that material.
I'm stunned that we would place law enforcement in the position of seizing and destroying materials from a public library. That's reminiscent of some pretty awful things in history, and I would not want to place our law enforcement, who's providing great service to this community, and in that position of being the people that would be required to do that. It's not a good look.
Larson tells me that the encouraging thing for her in the library district over the last week is the fact that they had a huge majority of the community show support at the hearing in Ada County over if the public library system in Meridian should be dissolved or not, and that is still up in the air if it'll be put on the ballot, so we'll update you as that happens. Did want to mention that we're expecting to hear from Senator Chuck Winder, who is the authors and has really been talking a lot about the legislation 1187, 1188. However, he was wrapped up in the Idaho Senate today, and Brian will touch more on that in just a minute. But I do want to mention this while we have you. Major news out of the State House today. The Idaho Senate did approve a ban on gender-affirming care for minors. House Bill 71, the Vulnerable Child Protective Act, it bans care for transgender and transitioning children or children with gender dysphoria from receiving any type of hormones or puberty blockers to alleviate their symptoms or help with transitioning. In the new law, it also, the legislation, I should say, not signed into law, it bans transitional surgeries for minors, but there are no public records really showing that those surgeries are happening for people under 18, is what critics of the bill had been saying. Proponents said, though, that it didn't matter. Now, the Idaho Senate did make a change to the bill, but it did already pass the House. So the Idaho House will have to get a chance to agree with the changes made in the Senate, which they likely will do this week, maybe tomorrow. From there, though, if the House approves it, it would go to Governor Little, and Little can sign it into law, veto it, or let it become law without his signature. If it does go into law, this would all start on January 1st, 2024, and doctors who provide such gender-affirming care as outlined in the law, they'd be charged with the felony, or they could be. So why did Idaho senators vote to approve the bill? Here's a taste of today's debate.
This may be well-intentioned legislation, but it inserts government into one of the most momentous decisions a family can make. Please vote against it.
These are decisions that will affect the child for the rest of their life. And we all know how easy it is, and impressionable young children are, to get peer pressured, or what they think is cool at the time, or what they see on TV. And that's how they make decisions. If my parents would have let me make those kind of decisions, I'd have been Batman and probably got killed by now.
I guess I'm just having a little bit of problem about the flip-flopping we make when the choice is not one we might personally make in our own life. And I just can't go there. I cannot flip-flop and get whiplash on every bill we have, whether it's the Constitution, we believe in this bill, but not this bill, whether it's personal rights, we believe in this bill, but not this bill. It's time we quit the flip-flopping and we allow parents to do what's best for their child with the consultation of the doctors, the many doctors that they all see.
The state has a vested interest in protecting children. This is irreversible. There are no takebacks. It is prudent for us, if they really feel that the best choice is to mutilate themselves, then they better wait until they're an adult.
So you can see the vast spectrum there of opinions on the topic. Again, though, this heads to the Idaho House for quick approval. It would then go to the governor's desk. And Brian, I'm already seeing questions about vetoes. There's a major veto that happened today. Will this get vetoed by the governor? We don't know. There's also a situation, though, where the governor does not have to sign it. It can become law without his signature after a certain amount of time. So the clock is going to start as soon as it gets to his desk. It's still waiting to go into the House, who was not in action today. So that'll likely get brought up tomorrow.
Irreversible is, of course, debatable, especially when it comes to hormone therapy and puberty blockers. A lot of doctors have testified, even in committee here in Idaho, saying it is reversible. And you have to go through about a year of psychological therapy to even get into any of those hormone therapies or puberty blockers. So there's a lot that goes into it. They don't just hand that stuff out. It doesn't happen automatically. ACLU of Idaho, by the way, putting out a statement today, the executive director, Leo Morales, saying that our state should be a safe place for every family, and that he worries that passage of this, and then if it goes to the governor, he signs it, that it will force more families to move from the state of Idaho, seek health care for their children.
Certainly possible. If a family doesn't believe they can get the medical care they need in Idaho, they might move to Washington or Oregon.
All right. We'll be right back. Thanks, Joe. I've said this before, and you know this. Questions and comments, yours, fuel the 208. We try to answer as many as we can as we wrap up a week, but sometimes there are a few leftovers, like today. So let's start with this one. Rick asked, property tax relief. How much relief is each household in Ada County going to get with the proposed legislation? My guess is that it'll be under $100 per household and maybe nothing due to the yearly increases. Well, Rick, how does nothing sound to you? At this point, you might take a cool 100, but unfortunately, the only property tax relief bill to make it to the governor's desk with this session was just vetoed by the governor today. House Bill 292. Not a simple bill, said Governor Little, calling it a hodgepodge of policy items intermingled with property tax relief. It was a 20-page bill, and it included things about moving property tax relief money into public defense fund. Transportation funding was also talked about. It was messing with sales tax stuff, local and online. It would also get rid of school, levy, and bond elections in March. So it did a lot of stuff, but just not enough for just property tax relief. Governor wants a simple bill, he says, and last check, the Senate was trying to craft one. And about an hour and a half ago, they took House Bill 198 and they amended it. Okay, so this bill, House Bill 198, this one right here, it passed the House originally 68-0 and dealt with income, sales tax debt, and interest. Now it has nothing to do with that. They took what they think the governor didn't want in 292, which he vetoed, and he crammed it, they all crammed it in this one, taking it from 3 pages here to 16 pages here. It says here at the top, take page 1, scratch off the beginning here. We don't need any of this right there, get rid of that, and then just insert the rest of this instead of pages 2 and 3. That's called amending a bill, apparently. Several senators stood up complaining they didn't have time to digest all 16 pages. Understand it, they didn't like it, but they would be reluctantly voting yes, and it passed 32-3. So what's in it? We're not sure either. We just got it ourselves. But property tax relief is still alive at the State House. So there you go. Sticking with the legislature, something a bit more on the favorable side of the gentleman on the second floor. Roger and Emmett asked, what has happened to our teachers' pay raises? Well, so far, so good. 2 weeks ago, JFAC approved a $3.3 billion budget for Idaho public schools. It's the biggest expenditure in the state, and it includes $145 million for teacher pay raises. This is all part of Governor Little's plan to push Idaho new teacher pay into the top 10 in the country. That would mean first-year teachers would get $47,477 a year to start. And across the state, the budget would put nearly $6,400 per teacher into the salary schedule. So yes, teacher pay raises are coming for fiscal year 2024, depending on approval from the Senate. Those budgets have already passed the House. And again, we'll see what the Senate has to say about it. Jim from Meridian said, love your program, appreciate all the updates on the bills going through the legislature. Sure, can you give your viewers information on where they can find how their district's representatives voted on these bills? Yes, Jim, we can. But as with pretty much anything with our legislature, it's kind of simple, but also kind of not. It starts at legislature.idaho.gov. There, you'll see a tic-tac-toe type of screen. Put your X or click on the upper left square titled Legislative Sessions. That will take you to a page of all things that have to do with the first session of the 67th legislature, which is a fancy way to say the 2023 session. See the Bill Center bullet point at the top? Click on that. What follows is a complete list of every bill printed this session by number. 371 on the House side, 212 on the Senate side, even though they start in the thousands, which I know can be confusing, but it's supposed to keep it less so. It helps to know the number of the bill if you want to learn more about it. But let's look at the first one from the House side. House Bill 1, Post-Election Audits Requirements. What is House Bill 1? There you can read the full text and all of its legalese. Or you can check out the Cliff Notes version, the Statement of Purpose, which also includes the fiscal note, or how much it would cost the state to implement should that bill become a law. There you can also see the bill's sponsor. Okay, now go back to the main page of House Bill 1. There, a simple scroll down will show you how it started in the State Affairs Committee and how it's going, passing nearly unanimously in both the House and in the Senate. You can also see who voted how by name. At the bottom, you can see House Bill 1 was then signed into law by Governor Brad Little on February 21st, 2023. That was kind of simple, I guess. So hopefully that helps, Jim. All right, finally for today, Mike asked, Oregon is not requiring people to wear masks in medical facilities effective April 3rd. Haven't heard you say anything about that. Well, yes. Well, Mike is right. Both Oregon and Washington announced they're ending their medical mask mandates on April 3rd. Oregon Health Authority made the announcement earlier this month after beginning that mandate in August of 2021. OHA said they are dropping their mandate because 3 respiratory conditions causing hospital surges are finally down. They said the mask mandate lift applies to workers, patients, and visitors. This also applies, or if this does apply to Idaho, we wanted to know, we asked, do we even have one? We never really had a mask mandate per se across the state, but technically, yes, school districts, cities created mask mandates kind of at the local level in the heat of the pandemic. Most of those ended in March of last year or even earlier. Private companies, though, like Idaho's medical facilities, they make their own rules. So some private businesses kept their mask mandates in place longer than March of 2022. So we reached out to 2 of Idaho's largest medical providers in the state, that'd be St. Luke's and St. Alphonsus, about their medical mask mandates. They said they both still require masks in all of their healthcare settings where healthcare is being administered or patients are present. St. Luke said with the health and safety of our staff and patients as top priorities, they regularly review and update its policies, procedures, including those that are directed to reduce the spread of COVID-19 and other viral infections, not just COVID. Their visitor policy was updated March 8th of this month, of this year. Presently, we continue to require masking in our patient care areas. St. Alphonsus, currently all St. Alphonsus clinics and hospitals do require masks. And they have recently seen major improvements in the data, including in the Oregon counties where their facilities are also located. They're hopeful this trend continues and they will adjust masking policies when possible. So for now, no medical mask mandate lift is there for Idaho's medical facilities.
And that is why I run for President of the United States. And that is why I come here to ask for your help.
55 years ago yesterday, Senator Robert Kennedy was in Pocatello to drum up support for his run for president, a campaign he announced just days before. This wasn't a stop by happenstance. Senator Kennedy didn't just blindly point to a map and say, let's go there. Senator Kennedy was a friend of Idaho Senator Frank Church, often visited the Gem State to recreate. So why not include Idaho in the campaign leading up to a presidential election? So today, we're dusting off the film from 1968 for a look back at what was one of Bobby Kennedy's first, but also one of his last appearances as a candidate for president.
I am announcing today my candidacy for the presidency of the United States.
With that, Senator Robert Francis Kennedy entered a crowded Democratic field for president.
I cannot stand aside from the contest that will decide our nation's future.
Tribute to all of you.
10 days later, on a Tuesday, the senator from New York was in Idaho, stumping in familiar stomping grounds.
And why I ask for your support from the state of Idaho. I have more of my family that have broken their legs in Idaho than any other family that's running for president.
Yes, Bobby's son Joseph did break his leg while skiing in Sun Valley. However, the Kennedys were frequent visitors to the Gem State, stopping by in all seasons over the years, without a stop at the infirmary.
To support our government.
This time, it was less vacation, more vocation.
They ask, whose side are you on? I think a time has come to answer that question. I think Frank Church has already answered that question, and many others.
In Idaho State University's Reed Gym, Kennedy campaigned on continuing the fight for civil rights, but ending our involvement in Vietnam, ending poverty, and ending the status quo.
I don't think that we have to accept the idea that we're going to have violence in our cities summer after summer. I think we could do much better there. And I also don't think that we have to accept the fact that there are these deep divisions within our country. This country, after all, is generous. This country, after all, is filled with compassion. I understand and recognize that what I am attempting to do is running against the establishment. It's going to be very difficult, whether it's here in the state of Idaho or whether it's in the state of California or any of these other states. And the only way that I believe that we can change, the only way that we can change the course of action, we certainly are not going to do that through the nominee of the Republican Party. And I don't believe that we're going to be able to do it through the present leadership in the Democratic Party. I come here to Pocatello to ask for your help to do just that. Thank you very much.
Senator Kennedy wasn't finished with his Treasure Valley tour.
Gun legislation, sir?
I'm in favor of guns not being in the hands of people who are insane, people who are demented, and people who have criminal records.
2 months later, after landing in La Grande, Oregon,
All right, let's have a nice cheer.
the Democratic candidate rolled down Ontario's 4th Street on May 23, 1968.
I'm very pleased to be in Ontario. Very pleased to see all of you.
And spoke to a crowd of thousands.
Farmers should have the right to organize and bargain for themselves. I think that the corporation farming presents a danger for the farmer here in Oregon and in this part of the state.
Senator Kennedy wouldn't win Oregon's primary 5 days later, but he would take California's on June 4th. Hours after, just after midnight on June 5th, 1968, Senator Kennedy was shot by Sirhan Sirhan in the kitchen of the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles. Senator Kennedy would officially pass 26 hours after being shot, dying on June 6, 1968. Vice President Hubert Humphrey would earn the party's nomination that November, and he would then lose to Richard Nixon. RFK's shooting was one of the last in a string of violent deaths, assassinations of public figures and activists in the 1960s. President John Kennedy in 1963, Malcolm X in 65, Martin Luther King Jr. in 68, then Senator Kennedy, of course, and Fred Hampton in 1969. Talked about lots of stuff today. Makes us tight on time here for your comments, but we'll get through as many as we can, like this one from Laura in Boise. The Republican Party is no longer the party of less government. This new party wants to control every aspect of our lives. Very sad. Please note, the library bills, also impact museums, many of which are in Idaho are staffed entirely by volunteers. Do we really want to jail volunteers because an overzealous parent objects to an exhibit or a tour topic? It's a question from Linda, and this also appeals, like books, Renaissance books that show works of art. Nudity is sometimes in those works of art. They'd have to be removed or at least face prosecution. Better burn any books to show the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, the Vatican in Rome. Is it too late to lock up Michelangelo? What about David, the statue David coming through? No good. Harmful materials. You know what's actually harmful to children? Assault-style guns. We'll see you tomorrow.